There are two men, and I want you to watch them both before this hour is finished, because you are one of them, and you do not yet know which. The first man waits all his life to earn his abundance. He is not lazy. Understand that he works, he sweats, he is patient. But underneath all his labor lies one quiet belief that ruins everything, that the thing he wants is not yet his, that it sits somewhere out beyond him, and that one day, if he is good enough and works hard enough and waits long enough, it might finally be granted to him as a reward. And so he waits and he earns, and he waits, and he dies, still waiting with the thing he wanted, standing the whole time just out of reach, because he never once understood that it was never out of reach at all. The second man behaves as though the thing were already deed to him, written in his own name before he ever arrived, and merely sitting somewhere uncollected, waiting for him to come and take possession. He does not beg for it. He does not earn his way toward it. He simply walks toward it, as a man walks toward what already belongs to him, and he collects it. Now you will say, these are two opposite strategies. They are not. They are one single law seen through two different doors. For the riches of this world respond every time to the man who conducts himself as though they are already his. And so I tell you plainly in the first minute of this hour, I have not come to help you earn anything. I have come for the next 60 minutes to convince you of one thing and one thing only, that the abundance has already been issued in your name, and that the only task left to you in all the world is to walk to the window and collect it. You are not a beggar at the gate. You are an heir who has not yet walked to the window. Now lie still and do not listen to be inspired. Listen to be convinced. I intend to close every exit until belief is the only room you have left to stand in. Part 1. The deed was written before you arrived. Let me begin by overturning the one belief that has kept you poor. Not poor in your pocket necessarily, but poor in your expectation, which is the poverty that produces all the rest. You have believed your whole life that abundance is manufactured by struggle, that a man takes raw nothing and by the sweat of years hammers it slowly into something. And there is a kind of truth in it that has fooled better men than you. For struggle is real and labor is real, and nothing comes to the idle. But the belief is wrong at its root, and the error is fatal, because it puts the abundance out there in the future as a thing not yet existing. A thing you must bring into being by force. And a man who believes the thing does not yet exist behaves in every hour of his life like a man reaching for what is not there. Hear the truth that the men who arrive have always known. Abundance is not manufactured. It is claimed. The universe does not deal in things it must be persuaded to create for you. It deals in what has already been issued, and it pays out to the man who knows exactly what is his and comes definite and certain to collect it. The deed was written before you arrived. Your portion was set aside and named. The whole question of your life is not whether the thing exists, it exists. It has your name on it, but whether you will conduct yourself as a man to whom it has been refused, or as a man to whom it has already been given. And this, mark it well, makes all the difference in how the world treats you. For the world is a mirror, and it answers a man according to his posture. Real quick, I want to step out of the lesson and just talk to you. We hit 300,000 subscribers, and honestly, I'm a little lost for words. Every one of those is a person who let me be a small part of their day, their journey, their hope for something more. That's sacred to me. And if you're one of them, I want you to really hear this. You are exactly where you need to be among people who believe in the same beautiful possibility you do. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're right on time. Thank you for being here. It means the world. By the way, if you still have not checked the first link in the description, I highly encourage you to do so. You can get an auto-suggestion sheet for completely free, so go and grab it now. Watch the beggar. The beggar stands at the gate with his hat in his hand and his eyes lowered, and he asks for what he hopes he might receive. Everything in his bearing says, I do not expect this. I have no right to it. I will take whatever scrap is given and be grateful. And the world looks at him and treats him exactly as he has presented himself as a man with no claim. And so it gives him scraps or nothing, and he goes away confirmed in his poverty. Now watch the heir. The heir does not lower his eyes, and he does not twist his hat. He walks to the window with the calm and settled bearing of a man collecting what is already his. He does not ask whether it is available. He knows it is. He does not hope. He expects everything in his manner says, "This was deed to me, and I have come for it." And the world, which is a mirror, looks at this man and treats him precisely as presented himself, as a man with a rightful and definite claim. The same window that paid the beggar scraps pays the heir in full. And the only thing that changed between them was the posture of the man who approached it. Here is the thing you must understand before we go one step further. The man who acts as though he has been refused gets treated as a man who has been refused. Not because the world is cruel, but because the world cannot tell the difference between a man who truly has no claim and a man who merely behaves as though he has none. You have been behaving for years like a man who has been refused, and the world has been answering you accordingly. And you have called its answer reality, and you have built your whole low expectation upon it. So we begin tonight by writing the first line of the deed back into your own mind. Before you go on, name the exact thing that has already been deeded to you. Not a vague life, but the definite thing, the thing with a shape and a size, and hold it as already issued in your name. Say within yourself slowly with me, "The thing I want was deed to me before I arrived, and it sits uncollected waiting. I am not a beggar at the gate. I am an heir who has not yet walked to the window, and I have begun to walk. Let that pass down into you. Do not argue. I have many more hours of argument ahead, and I do not need you to win this one tonight. I only need you to let it in." Part 2. Why you have not collected it yet. Now, an honest question rises, and I will not pretend it doesn't, because I told you I intend to close every exit, and this is one a clever man would try to slip out through. If the thing is truly already mine, you ask, then why have I not got it? Why have I gone all these years with my name on a deed and nothing in my hand? Hear the answer, for it is the hinge of the whole matter. The thing has not been withheld from you by the world. It has been left uncollected by you. And the reason is always in every case I have ever studied across 30 years of examining successful and unsuccessful men, the very same reason. You have never once made your claim definite. Picture the window where abundance is paid out. And picture the slip a man must present to collect. The man who arrives with a slip that says only more, the window cannot pay it. There is nothing on it to pay against. More is not a sum. The man who arrives with a slip that says someday, the window cannot honor it, for someday is not a date, and a thing payable someday is payable never. The man who says a better life, I suppose, whatever that might look like, hands across a blank slip with no figure and no name, and stands there wondering why the window does not move. The abundance is real. The account is real. But abundance cannot pay out against a vague wish any more than a bank can cash a check on which no amount has been written. The vague wisher is not standing at the wrong window. He is standing at the right window with the wrong slip, a blank one, and calling the teller's silence a refusal. And here is the cruelest part of it, the part that keeps men poor for whole lifetimes. The drifter mistakes uncollected for unavailable. He walks to the window once, holds up his blank slip of vague wanting, receives nothing because there is nothing to pay against, and concludes reasonably. It feels to him that the thing is simply not available to a man like him, and so he stops walking toward the window altogether. He turns away. He spends the rest of his years a long distance off, looking back now and then at the window where his inheritance still sits, telling himself and anyone who listened that such things are for other men, that the world is closed to him, that he tried once and was refused. He was never refused. He simply never wrote anything on the slip. Let me show you two men who stood at the very same window of life and walked away with opposite fortunes. And I will tell you at the start that there was nothing to choose between them, in talent, in luck, or in the circumstances they were born to. The first drifted. I do not mean he was idle. He held positions. He drew wages. He kept busy from morning to night. But he drifted in the one place where it is fatal to drift. In his purpose, he never fixed upon one definite thing. He let the days carry him, taking up whatever came and laying it down when it grew hard, blown a little this way by one man's opinion, and a little that way by another's, never once setting his whole self toward a single named aim and holding it. And because he never made a definite claim, life paid him, as it pays all such men. It carried him gently and without malice, right past his own inheritance, and on toward an ordinary, forgettable end. And he never even knew what he had drifted past. The second man, born to no better fortune, did one thing the first never did. He decided. He looked life full in the face and named the exact thing he intended to have. And he wrote it on the slip, and he took hold of his own course with both hands and refused to let the days carry him where they pleased. He was not carried. He steered, and life, meeting at last a man who had made a definite claim, paid out to him what it had been holding the whole time, unable to release it sooner, because he had never before come to the window with anything written down. The whole difference between those two men, and I have watched this difference, decide 1,000 fortunes, was not in what life had set aside for them. Life had set aside abundance for them both. The deeds were written in both their names. The difference was that one made his claim definite and one never did. And so one collected and one drifted past. So tonight you write the slip. Not more, not someday. The exact sum you intend to collect. The exact service you intend to render in fair exchange. For the window pays out against value given, never against value merely hoped for, and the exact date by which you intend to have collected it. Make it so definite that the window has something solid to pay out against. Say with me, I have stopped handing the window a blank slip. I name the exact thing, the exact sum, the exact service I will give, and the exact day. My claim is definite now, and a definite claim must be paid. I was never refused. I had only never written it down. Now it is written. Part 3. Faith is the hand that reaches in. You have written the slip. Now you must reach through the window and take what is yours. And the hand that does the reaching is faith. Not faith as the world weakly uses the word, meaning a hope that something nice might possibly occur. I mean faith as a state of mind. The settled felt certainty that the thing is already yours, so complete and so calm that it moves your hand to reach in and collect without hesitation. That certainty is the reaching hand. Without it, a man may stand at the window with a perfect slip in his fingers and never once put his hand through the opening. Because somewhere underneath, he does not truly believe anything will be placed in it. And here is the freedom I would give you early, the same freedom I give in every one of these hours. Because men waste whole decades for the want of it. You do not have to wait to be given faith. Faith is not handed down to the lucky and the worthy out of some clear sky. Faith is induced. You manufacture it deliberately with your own deliberate repetition by handing the same firm conviction to the deep mind again and again until the deep mind accepts it as a settled fact and gives it back to you as a thing felt and known. The man who waits to feel certain before he will act certain waits forever. The man who speaks the certainty first before the feeling has come finds the feeling coming up the road to meet his words. You speak it into being. That is the whole law, and it is the law that turns a wisher into an heir. Let me tell you of a man whose certainty was by itself worth a fortune, and I will tell you about him before I tell you who he was, because I want you to see the thing in him plainly before the name dazzles you out of seeing it. Before we go deeper, understand this. Napoleon Hill said, "No desire turns into money until it's repeatedly impressed on the subconscious mind." That repetition has a name, autosuggestion. I've taken the exact daily script the old masters used and put it on a single page for you, completely free. It's called the autosuggestion sheet. Grab it and follow along for the rest of this video. The link is waiting in the description. There was once a young man in the steel business, not born to wealth, who had something the men above him with all their capital did not have. When he spoke of a thing he intended to do, his certainty was so complete, so warm, so entirely without doubt that other men found themselves believing it before he had finished speaking. He did not stand and hope aloud that a venture might succeed. He spoke of its success as a settled fact already accomplished, merely awaiting the working out. And his conviction was so total that it kindled the same conviction in everyone who heard him. There came a night when he rose to speak before the richest and most powerful men of his industry, men who could make or unmake any enterprise in the country. And he laid before them a vision of a great combination of steel, And he spoke of it not as a daring proposal that might or might not come to pass, but as a thing as good as done. And his certainty was so contagious, so absolute, that those hard and skeptical men were carried by it. And out of that one speech, delivered in pure conviction, came one of the greatest industrial fortunes the world had ever seen. The young man was Charles Schwab. He was not the man with the most money in that room. Far from it. He was the man with the most faith, and his faith was worth more than all their money, because faith is the hand that reaches in and collects, and his hand never once trembled. That is what I want to build in you tonight. Not a hope that flickers, but a conviction so settled that it reaches through the window without a tremor. And we build it the only way it has ever been built, by speaking the claim in the present possessed tense as a thing already in the hand, repeated until the deep mind takes it for fact. So do not say, "I will one day become wealthy." That keeps the thing forever out beyond you. Say instead what an heir says, that the thing has already been given and that you are now collecting it. Speak it slowly with me. I do not hope it might come. I know it is already mine. The certainty is settled in me, and that certainty is the hand that reaches through and collects. I speak this as a present fact tonight, and my deep mind takes my repeated word for truth. Part 4, acting as if the account is already open. There is one law left to give you before this first half closes. And it is the law that turns all the believing into collecting. For a man may write the slip and feel the certainty and still sit motionless. And a motionless heir collects exactly as much as a beggar. This law I call applied faith, and it is simply this. You act as though the result were already certain while it is still entirely invisible, because the acting as if is itself the act of collection. Understand what I'm telling you. Faith that stays inside a man, however warm, is not yet faith applied. It becomes a living power only when a man begins to conduct his actual affairs, his decisions, his bearing, the way he speaks, and the way he carries himself through an ordinary day as a man whose account is already open and full. He does not wait for the proof to arrive before he behaves as the man who has it. He behaves as that man first, while the account is still invisible to every eye, including on his weaker days his own. And by behaving as the heir, he is treated as the heir, and the invisible account begins to make itself visible in his hands. For this cuts both ways, and you have been living the wrong side of it. The man who behaves like an heir is treated as one by everyone he meets and every situation he enters. And the man who behaves as though he has been refused, who carries himself small, who speaks apologetically, who shrinks from the larger room and the larger ask, that man confirms the refusal with his own conduct, and the world obligingly refuses him just as he has instructed it to. You have perhaps been confirming a refusal that was never issued by acting it out faithfully every day. Let me tell you of a man who acted as though the fortune were already his for years, while the whole world called him a fool. And I will not name him until you have seen him. Plainly, there was once an ordinary man, a traveling salesman by trade, who got hold of a simple idea that a man might shave with a thin blade thrown away when it grew dull, rather than forever sharpening one old blade. The idea seemed small and faintly ridiculous to nearly everyone he showed it to. The experts in steel told him flatly that a blade so thin and so cheap could not be made. Years went by, long, lean years, in which he had nothing to show for the idea, but the unshakable conviction that it was sound and the steady behavior of a man who already owned the fortune it would bring. He did not abandon it when the experts laughed. He did not abandon it when the money ran short. He conducted himself year after barren year as a man whose account was already open and merely not yet visible. And he held that posture until at last a way was found to make the thin blade. And the idea he had behaved as though he already owned poured out a fortune that reached around the world. His name was King Gillette, and to this day, men like the abundance he believed into being, while the world called it foolishness. He acted as if the account were open long before any eye could see a single coin in it, and the acting as if was the collection. So here is your instruction for the night to carry down with you before sleep takes you. See yourself in tomorrow. Not hoping, not waiting, but conducting your ordinary affairs as a man whose account is already open and full. See how such a man speaks. See how he carries himself into the room. See how he decides without the small flinch of one who expects to be refused. See it until it feels like simply who you are. Say with me, I act as though the account were already open because it is. I do not wait for the proof to behave like the man who has it. I behave as that man now while it is still invisible. For the behaving is the collecting. I no longer confirm a refusal that was never issued. I conduct myself as the heir. I am the one window, and why you keep changing lines, I must stop you here before we go on to persistence. Because there is a habit in you that will wreck everything we have built so far if I do not name it and break it tonight. And it is so common, so reasonable seeming, that you have never once suspected it of being the thief it is. You change lines. You walk up to the window. You present your definite claim. And then, when it is not paid in the first stretch of silence, you do not simply leave as the quitter does. You do something that feels far wiser. You decide you must have chosen the wrong window. So you fold your slip and you walk down the row and you get into a different line entirely with a different claim written on a fresh slip, certain this time you have found the right one. And when that line too makes you wait, you move again and again. And you spend your whole life walking up and down the row of windows, always claiming, never collecting. And you call this searching, and you call it keeping your options open. And you imagine it is the mark of a flexible and intelligent man. It is none of those things. It is the shest poverty there is, and it is more hopeless than the quitters, because the quitter at least knows he has given up while you believe you are still trying. Hear the law that breaks this habit. There is one window one. The abundance you were deed does not sit scattered across 100 different counters, payable to 100 different versions of your wanting. It sits at the single window of your one definite chief aim, and it can only ever be collected there. Every time you change your claim, you start the count over. Every time you switch lines, the standing you had built at the first window, the standing that comes only from a man who waits definite and unmoved, you throw away and you begin again at zero. A stranger at a new counter. The man who changes his claim every season is not a man with many chances. He is a man with no chance at all because abundance is paid out to definitesse held over time. And a claim that keeps changing has no time behind it. It is forever new, forever unproven, forever starting from nothing. I have watched able men far more gifted than the plotters who pass them, destroy themselves this way, and never know what destroyed them. They had desire. They had energy enough for 3 men. What they did not have was the willingness to hold one window long enough to be paid at it. The first hard stretch, the first long silence, and they were sure the trouble lay in the choice of aim rather than in their own refusal to wait. And so they chose again brilliantly, and waited again briefly, and chose again. And the plotter beside them, with half their gifts, stood at his one window with his one slip, and did not move, and was paid in full, while the gifted man was still walking the row. Certain his fortune lay at the next counter down. So understand what your changing has cost you. It is not that you chose wrong all those times. It is that you never stayed at any choice long enough for the staying to count. The wisher believes the abundance is somewhere he has not yet looked. The heir knows it is at the one window where he has already made his claim. He refuses to insult his own claim by going to look for it somewhere else. Tonight, then you fix not only the claim but the window. You decide that you will not change it. That this is the one line you will hold, that you are done walking the row. Now, if you're ready to stop learning and start seeing evidence, I built something for you. It's called the 14-Day Money Magnet Protocol. 14 days, one simple ritual a day. And the goal is concrete. Attract your first $100 out of nowhere. And here's my promise. If it doesn't happen, you get your money back. Because $100 isn't the point. It's the proof the law is working for you. Start it at thenashlife.com/moneymagnet. Second link in the description. Say with me, there is one window and I have chosen it. I do not walk the row anymore, changing my claim every season and calling it wisdom. Every change started the count from nothing, and I am done starting over. I hold this one claim at this one window long enough for the holding to be paid. I do not insult my own claim by searching for it elsewhere. It is here, and I stay. Let that settle. The man who finally stops changing lines has done a harder thing than the man who simply showed up, and it is the thing that gets paid. Part 5. The persistence that refuses to leave the window. Now I must speak to you of the place where nearly every man loses what was already his. And I want you to attend closely because I suspect you have lost things here yourself and called the loss by another name. Most men walk to the window of life exactly once. They make their claim, and let us be generous and say they have even made it definite, written the slip properly, named the sum and the date. They present it, and it is not paid that very instant. The teller does not slide the abundance across the moment the slip touches the counter. There is a pause, there is a silence, there is a day or a week or a season in which nothing visible happens at all. And in that silence, the man's nerve fails him. He decides the silence is a refusal. He folds his slip and puts it back in his pocket and walks away from the window. And as he walks away, he tells himself the old lie that comforts every man who quits, that the thing was simply not available to him after all. He had it. It was written in his name. He stood at the very window where it was kept, and he left because it was not handed over in the first 10 seconds. This is where persistence does its work, and I want you to throw out whatever weak picture of persistence you have been carrying. Persistence is not grim teeth gritting. Persistence is not suffering nobly through misery. Persistence, rightly understood, is simply this: the refusal to leave the window until what is yours has been handed over. It is the settled posture of a man who knows the account is real and his name is on it, and who therefore sees no reason on earth to walk away merely because there has been a pause. He does not leave. He cannot be made to leave. He stands at the window with the calm of a man who has all the time there is, because he knows the thing is his, and a thing that is yours can be delayed, but it cannot be denied unless you yourself walk away and deny it for them. Let me tell you of the smallest, weakest figure who ever taught me this law, and who taught it to a man far larger and stronger who thought he could not be beaten. There was once a man who ran a mill, a hard man, a big man, and he had under him a worker whom he ruled by the force of his size and his temper. One day, this worker sent his small child to the mill on an errand to collect 50 cents that was owed. The child, a slight little thing, came into the great noisy mill where this towering man worked and stood quietly by and said she had come for the 50 cents. The big man, used to having his way by sheer presence, told her gruffly to go home. She did not move. He went on with his work and forgot her, and after a time looked up, and there she still stood. He ordered her out more harshly now, his voice, the voice that made grown men jump. She did not move. He raised himself to his full height and started toward her with a look that had frightened off bigger people than she. And the small child took one step toward him and looked straight up into his face and said with a force that stopped the great man cold that she had come for the 50 cents and she was not leaving without it. And she got it. The big man, who could not be moved by anyone in that mill, reached into his pocket and put 50 cents into her hand. And she turned and walked out. He stood there afterward, the man who told me the story, utterly defeated by a child, and not by her strength, for she had none, but by the one thing against which size and temper and anger have no defense: her absolute refusal to leave the window without what she had come for. She had a definite claim, and she simply would not go until it was paid. And the world, which can resist almost anything, cannot in the end resist that. That is the persistence I am asking of you. And notice it cost the child nothing but the decision to stay. The world will test the definites of your claim by making you stand at the window through the silence, not to refuse you, but to see whether your claim is real or whether you were only wishing. The man who walks away has answered, "I was only wishing." The man who stays has answered, "This is mine, and I have come for it, and I am not leaving without it." And to that answer given and held, the window must finally pay. So tonight, fix this into the deep mind. The claim is held through every silence, through every night, and it is not folded up and pocketed at the first hour that brings no visible answer. Say with me, I do not leave the window. The pause is not a refusal. It is the test of whether my claim is real, and my claim is real. I stand here with the calm of a man whose name is on the deed. For a thing that is mine can be delayed, but it cannot be denied. Unless I walk away and deny it myself, I will not walk away. I have come for what is mine, and I am not leaving without it. The toll you pay before the gate opens. There is one more thing you must understand about collecting what is already yours, and it is the thing men least want to hear. So I will say it plainly and not soften it, because softening it would be the cruelest thing I could do to you. There is a toll. The abundance was deed to you before you arrived. That is true, and I have spent this whole hour proving it to you. But between you and the window there stands a toll that must be paid in advance. And it must be paid in full. And it must be paid before the thing is handed over, and not after. This is the law that the dreamers refuse and the collectors accept. And it is the dividing line between them. The dreamer hears it is already yours, and concludes there is nothing more to do but want it warmly enough. He has heard only half of what I said. The collector hears the same words and understands that already yours means the thing exists and waits. It does not mean the walk to the window is free of cost. There is no something for nothing in this world. Not at any window. Not ever. The deed is real, but it is collected only by the man who pays the price of collection in advance. And what is the price? It is not suffering for its own sake. Let me clear away that error. For many men pay in pointless misery and wonder why the window stays shut. The toll is this. You must give value before you receive it. You must render the service before you collect the wage. You must become on the inside the man the abundance is suited to before the abundance is placed in his hands. For the universe does not hand a fortune to a man who has not yet grown large enough to hold it without being destroyed by it. The price is paid in service, rendered ahead of payment, in the extra mile walked before any reward is in sight, in the discipline kept, and the promise to yourself honored when no one is watching and nothing yet has come of it. That is the toll, and it is exact. The window pays out in precise proportion to the value you have laid down in advance, no more and no less. Hear why this is mercy and not cruelty, for it looks like cruelty until you turn it over. If the abundance came without the toll, if a man could collect the full fortune without first paying the price of becoming the man who can carry it, it would ruin him. You have seen it ruin men. The fortune that arrives in the hands of one who has not paid the toll of growth runs through his fingers and leaves him worse than it found him because he was never made large enough to hold it. The toll is not the world's way of keeping the abundance from you. It is the world's way of making sure that when the abundance comes, it comes to a man who will not be destroyed by it, that the heir has grown into the inheritance before he takes possession of it. The price you pay in advance is not a fee for entry. It is the very process by which you become a man who can keep what he collects. And here is the part that turns the whole thing from a burden into a kind of glad secret once you see it. The toll is paid in exactly the same coin we have been handling all night, the extra mile rendered before the reward that is value laid down in advance. The definite claim held at one window through the silence that is the toll of patience paid. The faith induced and held against all visible evidence that is the price of belief paid before the proof. You have not been doing one thing tonight and now suddenly facing a separate bill. Everything I have taught you to do is the paying of the toll. Here's the gap between the people who manifest wealth and the people who only watch videos about it. The wealthy install the idea daily until the mind accepts it as already done. You can't do that from memory. You need it in front of you. That's why I made the free auto-suggestion sheet. One page, read it morning and night, and you start reprogramming your self-image around money. It's free at the first link in the description. The man who does these things is paying his way to the window with every act, and by the time he arrives, the toll is already paid in full. And the thing is handed over to a man who has, without quite noticing, become large enough to hold it. So do not flinch at the word price, and do not look for the window that charges nothing, for it does not exist, and the men who go looking for it are the men who collect nothing. Pay the toll gladly in advance in service and discipline and faith held through the dark, and understand as you pay it that you are not buying the abundance, for it is already yours. You are growing into the man who can carry it. Say with me, there is a toll, and I pay it gladly and in advance. I render the value before I collect the wage. I do not look for the window that charges nothing, for it does not exist. The price I pay is not a fee. It is the way I grow into a man large enough to hold what is already deed to me. I pay it now in service and discipline and faith held through the dark, and by the time I reach the window, the toll is paid in full, and the thing is handed to a man who can keep it. Let that settle into you all the way down. The man who accepts the toll has stopped being a dreamer and become a collector, and the window opens only ever for the collector. I have spoken to you all this hour as though you stood at the window by yourself. One man, one slip, one claim held through the silence, and for the inner work that is exactly right. No one can write your slip for you, and no one can hold your faith in your place. But I would be deceiving you, and I will not deceive you tonight if I let you walk away, believing that a man collects the great abundances entirely alone. He does not. He never has. And the belief that he must, the proud, lonely belief that a real man builds his fortune single-handed and owes it to no one, has kept more able men small than almost any other error I know. Hear the law, for it is one of the surest I ever uncovered in all my years of study. No great fortune was ever collected by a single mind working alone. Behind every man who walked to the window and took possession of a large abundance, there stood a gathering of other minds, minds in harmony with his, working toward his definite aim in a spirit of perfect accord. And it was the combined power of those minds blended together that did what no one of them could have done apart. I have called this the mastermind. Two or more minds brought into harmony toward a single definite purpose, so joined that they create a third force, an intelligence greater than the simple sum of them. The way two notes struck together make a chord that neither string could sound by itself. Now mark this well, for it is the part that frees you. The lonely man imagines that to want help is to confess weakness, that the truly capable man needs no one. But it is exactly backward. It is the small man who insists on doing everything himself, because his pride cannot bear to share the credit or to admit there is anything he does not know. The large man surrounds himself deliberately and gladly with minds that know what he does not and powers that exceed his own. And he is not diminished by their strength. He is multiplied by it. The greatest collectors of abundance the world has ever known were not the men who knew the most. They were the men who knew how to gather around themselves. The minds that taken together knew everything the aim required. There was a man who built one of the greatest industrial fortunes of his age, a fortune so vast it staggered the imagination of his time, and he was asked near the end to what he owed it. He did not claim it was his own genius. He said plainly that he himself knew very little of the technical business of making steel, that there stood around him a group of men, some of whom understood the making of it far better than he ever would, and that his whole art had been to gather these minds and blend them into harmony toward one purpose. He had organized the knowledge and the power of other men into a single working force aimed at a single definite aim. And that combined force had collected a fortune no one of them, himself least of all, could have collected alone. The man was Andrew Carnegie, and the secret he confessed was not that he was the cleverest man in his own enterprise. He freely admitted he was not, but that he understood the law no lonely man ever learns. That a mastermind, deliberately formed and held in harmony, collects what no single mind can reach. So I must correct gently the picture I have let you hold all hour. You are still the heir. The deed is still in your name. The claim is still yours to make definite and yours to hold through the silence. No one does that inner work for you. But the collecting of a large abundance, the actual bringing of it from the invisible into the visible, is rarely the work of one pair of hands. It is the work of a mind that has gathered other minds to it in harmony toward the one aim. And the man who refuses to gather them out of pride, or out of the fear that needing others makes him less, condemns himself to collect only what one lonely mind can reach, which is always a small fraction of what was deed to him. And there is a second power in this, beyond the sharing of knowledge, subtler and greater. And I want you to have it. When two or more minds are brought into true harmony toward one definite purpose, something more than information passes between them. A man's faith is strengthened by the faith of those around him. His certainty on the night it falters, and it will falter, is held up by their certainty. The aim on the day he might have abandoned it alone is kept alive because there are others holding it with him. And a thing held by several is far harder to let fall than a thing held by one. This is why the lonely man so often quits at the window. He has no one beside him to hold the claim steady when his own grip weakens. And so in his weakest hour, he folds the slip and walks away. And there is no one there to say stay. The man inside a true mastermind does not face the dark hour alone. The combined faith holds when his own would have failed. And he is carried through the silence by a strength that is partly his own and partly borrowed from minds in harmony with his. But hear the warning that must come with this gift. For the law cuts both ways, and the wrong company will collect your abundance right back out of your hands. A mastermind requires harmony, true accord. Minds genuinely align toward the one aim in a spirit of goodwill. A gathering of minds that pull against one another, that envy, that doubt, that quietly wish the thing would fail, is not a mastermind at all. It is the opposite, and it will drain a man faster than solitude ever could. The negative friend who scoffs at your claim, the doubter who reminds you nightly of the odds, the envious companion who is secretly glad each time you are not paid at the window. These are not neutral. They are minds working against your aim, and held close, they will wear down your faith by the same law of repetition that built it. So gather deliberately and gather carefully. Choose the minds you blend with your own, as a man chooses what he will plant in his own ground, for they will grow there, whether you intend it or not. So tonight, add this to everything else you carry down. You are not asked to collect alone, and you were never meant to. Begin to see even now, in the dark, the minds you will gather to your aim, the ones who know what you do not, the ones whose faith will hold when yours wavers, the ones who want your aim accomplished nearly as much as you do. And begin to see just as clearly the minds you must release, the doubters and the envier whose nearness has been draining you without your knowing it. Say with me, no man collects alone, and I will not insist on it out of pride. I gather to my aim the minds that know what I do not, and whose faith will hold when mine falters, and together we become a power greater than the sum of us. I do not mistake needing others for weakness. It is the small man who works alone, and the large man who multiplies himself through minds in harmony. And I release the doubters and the envier whose nearness drained my faith. I choose my company as I choose what I plant in my own ground, for it will grow there whether I intend it or not. Let that settle all the way down. The heir does not stand at the window alone. He arrives with the gathered strength of every mind he has joined to his purpose, and that combined force collects what one man, however determined, could never reach by himself. Part 6. The command that forces the invisible into the visible. You have written the slip, reached in with faith, acted as the heir, and refused to leave the window. Now, I will tell you by what road the thing actually travels from the invisible account into your visible hands, for it does travel by a road, and the road runs straight through the subconscious mind. The deep mind is the gateway through which the already deed thing is transmitted out of the invisible and into the physical. You do not collect your abundance the way you pick an apple off a low branch by the reach of the conscious hand alone. You collect it by handing your definite claim down into the subconscious, which connects past the narrow walls of your own skull with an intelligence far larger than your own. And that intelligence takes the definite claim and works by ways you will never fully trace. To bring the invisible thing across into the world of visible things, the conscious mind names the claim. The deep mind collects it. And the collecting happens below the surface in the dark while you go about your days, and especially while you sleep. But there is a posture the conscious mind must take for this transmission to occur, and most men never take it. And so the thing stays stuck on the invisible side of the window. The posture is command, not pleading, not hoping. Command the settled certainty of a man who has decided a thing and considers it already done, and who therefore will not entertain the word impossible, because to him the thing is not a question still open, but a matter already closed and merely uncollected. Quick one. If you want the money attraction law to prove itself to you fast, the 14-day money magnet protocol is designed to attract your first $100 in 2 weeks, or you get every cent back. Zero risk, real evidence. It's the second link in the description. Go grab it right now. Let me tell you of a stubborn employer who commanded the impossible into existence and who refused a word that all his own experts insisted upon. There was a manufacturer who decided he wanted a particular kind of engine, built one with all its cylinders cast in a single block. He went to his engineers and told them to build it. And his engineers, every one of them, men who knew their trade, told him the thing could not be done. It was not possible to cast such a block. It had never been done. The laws of their craft forbade it. He listened, and then he said, "Build it anyway." They went away and labored and came back and said again with more certainty that it was impossible. He said, "Build it. I want it made. Begin it and stay on it until it is done." Months passed. Nothing. The engineers were sure now, beyond any doubt, that their employer was demanding a thing that nature itself would not allow. They came to him to say so plainly. And he answered them with no anger and no argument, only the flat, immovable certainty of a man stating a settled fact. "Produce it. I want it, and I shall have it." And because he would not for one moment entertain the impossibility that filled every other mind in the building, because to him the engine already existed and was merely not yet cast, they cast it. The single block engine that all the experts swore could not be made was made, and it carried his name and his fortune for a generation. The man was Henry Ford. The thing was not impossible. It was merely uncollected, waiting for a man with the certainty to command it across from the invisible into the visible. And he was that man, because he had decided the matter was already closed. Now understand where Ford did his real building. He did not build that engine first in iron. He built it first in his imagination, complete and whole, and already existing, and held it there as a settled fact, while every visible sign said it could not exist. The imagination is the place a thing is collected first before the hands ever touch it. The men who turn invisible ideas into fortunes do their first and truest building there in the workshop of the mind. And the physical thing is only the shadow that the imagined thing finally throws into the world. So tonight do this, and then as always, cease your wrestling. Hand the definite claim down to the deep mind as a command, not a plea. The certainty of a man stating a closed matter and then stop struggling with it. For the transmission happens below the surface, and a man who keeps dragging the thing back up to the conscious mind to worry over it interrupts the very work that would collect it. Say with me, I hand my claim to the deep mind as a command, not a plea, for the matter is already closed and merely uncollected. I do not entertain the word impossible, for the thing already exists and waits only to be carried across. I build it now in my imagination, whole and finished, and I hand it down, and then I cease my wrestling and let the deep mind collect it while I sleep. Part 7. Casting out the fear that you were never owed anything. We come now to the one enemy that can undo every law I have given you tonight. And it is an enemy that wears a disguise so convincing that good men mistake it for a virtue. I must strip the disguise off it before you sleep, because as long as it stands in you, every other thing we have built will leak away through it in the night. The deepest theft a man's mind ever commits against him is this: the settled belief that abundance belongs to other men and not to him. That the deed, whoever's name it bears, surely does not bear his. That such things, the wealth, the position, the full and easy life, are for a different sort of man, born to it, suited to it, deserving of it in some way he is not. This is the fear of poverty, wearing the mask of humility, and that mask is what fools the good man, for he mistakes his own quiet despair for modesty, and even for a kind of decency. He says, I am not the sort of man who gets such things. And he imagines he is being humble when in truth he is committing the one act that guarantees he never will get them. He is refusing his own inheritance at the door and calling the refusal a virtue. Now hear the thing that frees you from it. This belief is not the truth. It was never the truth. It is a habit of thought, and nothing more planted in you long ago by repetition, by the words of discouraged men around you. By 100 small defeats you let harden into a verdict. by the long nightly rehearsal of your own unworthiness that you never once knew you were performing. It got into you exactly the way everything gets into the deep mind, by being repeated until it was accepted as fact. And what was planted by repetition can be uprooted by repetition. You are not fighting the truth when you fight this belief. You are merely reversing a habit. And a habit, however old, is only a habit. And mark how you uproot it. For here men go to war the wrong way and lose. You do not argue yourself out of the feeling that you were never owed anything. You cannot win that argument in the dark. The feeling is older and more practiced than your arguments, and the more you wrestle it, the larger it looms. You uproot it the way light empties a dark room, not by struggling against the darkness, but by bringing in the light, so that there is simply no room left for the dark to stay. You crowd the belief out by occupying the whole mind with the deed already written in your name. You do not refute not for you. You make it homeless by filling every room with it. Is already mine until the old whisper arrives to find nowhere left to settle. So tonight, when the whisper comes, and it will come in the voice of false humility, telling you gently that men like you do not collect such things, do not stop to argue with it, and do not lower your head to it as though it were the truth. Answer it with the definite claim you have already spoken, and let that claim fill the room until the whisper has nowhere to stand. Say with me, the belief that I was never owed anything is not the truth. It is an old habit of thought planted by repetition, and by repetition I now uproot it. It wore the mask of humility, but refusing my own inheritance is no virtue. I do not argue with the whisper. I crowd it out. My mind is filled full with the deed in my own name, and there is no room left for not for you to rest. The light is in the room, and the dark must go. Part 8. Walk to the window. We have come to the end of the hour, and I would have you gather the whole of the argument now into one hand before you sleep, because I told you at the start that I would close every exit. And I have, and there is only the one door left, and it leads where I have been pointing the whole time. Here is everything I have laid before you. The abundance was deed to you before you ever arrived. Written in your name, set aside, real. It is gone all these years uncollected, not because the world withheld it, but because you never made your claim definite, and a window cannot pay out against a blank slip. The way you reach in and take it is faith, not the hope that it might come, but the settled certainty that it is already yours, induced by your own repetition, until the deep mind gives it back to you as a fact. You secure it by acting as though the account were already open, conducting your affairs as the air while it is still invisible. Because the acting as if is itself the collecting. You hold it by refusing to leave the window through the silence. For the pause is only the test of whether your claim is real. It is transmitted from the invisible into your hands through the deep mind, handed down as a command and not a plea, and built first whole in the imagination. And it is guarded against the one enemy that would steal it back. The false humility that says it was never yours by crowding that whisper out with the deed itself. Every one of those is a single step in one single act. And the act has a name, and the name is collection. You are not earning. You never were. You are collecting what was already issued to you. So let the whole of it come down now into one creed spoken slowly in the first person as entirely your own. It is already mine. I am not earning it. I am collecting it. The deed was written before I arrived, and it waits with my name upon it. I have made my claim definite, and a definite claim must be paid. I reach in with faith, for I do not hope I know. I act as the air I am while it is still invisible. I do not leave the window through the silence. I command it across from the invisible into my hands, and I crowd out every whisper that says it was never mine. It is already mine, and I am collecting it now. Hold that. Let it settle all the way down into you. And now hear the last thing I will say to you tonight, and it is the plainest thing I have said in this whole hour. The only thing standing between you and the abundance is the short walk to the window and the decision to make your claim definite enough that it must be paid. That is all. It is not a long road of years of earning. It is a short walk, and you have been standing a long way off from a window where your own inheritance has sat the whole time telling yourself it was for other men. It was never for other men. It had your name on it. It still does. So you will not wake tomorrow with it already in your hand. Let us be honest, men, to the end. But you will wake an heir who has finally stopped behaving like a beggar and who knows now where the window is and what is kept there in his name. Let the day obey that knowledge. Walk toward the window in everything you do tomorrow, as a man collecting what is his, and come back to this hour night after night. For the claim is made definite, and the belief is hardened. The same way everything is hardened by returning until the new conviction runs of itself. Now there is nothing left to do but begin the walk. The slip is written. The deed is in your name. The window has been there the whole time. Release your striving. Let the words fade and carry only this down into the dark. It is already mine. I am not earning it. I am collecting it. And in the morning I walk to the window. Rest. Now, open quote. Before this video ends, make a decision. Keep wishing for money or start attracting it on purpose. Getting rich was never an accident. It's a mind train to expect wealth. I've made the first step free for you. One page that reprograms your money mind. Go to thesecondlife.com. Download your free Get Rich Auto Suggestion Sheet and begin tonight. Don't let this be one more video you watched and forgot. Links in the description. Close quote.